Hi, my name is Mark Barrett and I'm the Group CEO and co-founder of APC and VLE Therapeutics.
Over a decade ago, Mark Barrett and his co-founder Brian Glennon created APC out of a passion for science and research. Since then, APC has grown organically to become a global powerhouse in process development, partnering with companies large and small to bring medicines to market at unprecedented speed.
Why science or chemical engineering for me? Really important journey, I think, over the course of my life that kind of brought me to those kind of STEM-related areas. Remember growing up as a kid, my grandfather was a senior pilot in Aer Lingus, kind of really into kind of maybe challenging the norm from an engineering perspective. My two eldest brothers got involved in engineering as well. My eldest brother actually was Brian Glennon, my co-founder's first PhD student. I think a mix of those early phase memories with my grandfather, my brothers certainly brought me into the world of that science and engineering can really have an impact. And that lured me into chemical engineering and UCD. And I think whilst it was really challenging, I definitely fell in love with the idea of science and engineering having an impact on people's lives. Not through a spreadsheet or any type of analysis, but through real science. I felt there was a real kind of artistry and creativity aspect to chemical engineering that I really loved, and that's the thing I went on to pursue. So away I went, a younger book in chemical engineering, and two probably important parts of that journey for me. When I finished my final year of chemical engineering, I had the opportunity to do an internship in NASA in Florida, and was mentored by a chemical engineer who was a two-time astronaut. Winston Scott was his name. That kind of just blew my mind, for sure, in terms of the possibilities for engineers. And I took that maybe excitement and went back and did a PhD focused on how to manufacture pharmaceutical medicines, and really loved that, loved the exploration, the creativity side of it. And I guess when I finished that, the natural path was to go into a large pharmaceutical company. I guess that's the traditional path. And I went and did that, and I really loved the experience. But after a period of time, I felt maybe the dynamism, maybe the creativity or innovation impact I could have was perhaps a little bit limited. So at that moment, a really important decision, I decided to go back and do a postdoc research with Brian Glennon. Myself and Brian have a long history together. And the spark we had at the time was, let's really tool up this research and let's see how far we can take it. And I love reflecting that period of time. I just, it was kind of the early stages of my career, and I definitely recognized I have a really big interest in taking a leap of faith. And that was perhaps the first leap of faith that I took. And geez, I loved it. If I can go back to our kind of day zero, perhaps there's two important trips I just really remember. Myself and Brian were driving down to Cork to meet a prospective client. And I remember on the radio there was talk of no money being available in the ATMs anymore. We were really at the coalface of this kind of financial crisis. That backdrop, I think, was really important to our story, because at the time, the only way to get APC off the ground was through grit and determination. There was no real private equity or venture capital kind of money options out there. The government were struggling in terms of their ability to fund these early stage ideas. So, during those, I guess, growing up within that backdrop, myself and Brian made, I think, the best decision ever. We backed the science and engineering we were coming up with, and we felt that if we can meet clients, pharmaceutical companies around the world, that they would back that idea, and they did. I think that's one of the most important decisions that we made. We chose to back the science and perhaps not back the financial dream. Yeah, and so around that day zero, we were invited to travel to the US by a real senior person within a pharmaceutical company. They're impressed with our kind of publications, our scientific endeavor. And myself and Brian packed our bags. I think we were invited on like a Tuesday. We were flying over on the Wednesday, so it was kind of a pin of the collar type moment. So we boarded the flight, and I remember on the flight over, we had no real idea about what APC was, what it was going to do. We had no technology, no team. We probably had the elegance of some really nice ideas and a passion to do something special. And again, in that exchange with that company, they backed that. They backed our appetite to take something on, and commercially through that relationship, that gave us the early working capital to start the company. And without those kind of leaps of faith and putting yourself out there, I guess the idea would be still in a chest in myself and Brian's head, I guess. So if we think of the rise of the global pandemic, March 2020, myself and Brian were in Boston. We were actually on a rush out of Boston because a lot of the companies were stopping having visitors on site because of the pandemic, and we were on one of the last flights home from the US. And it was on that flight, I think we really chose to be brave. Another one of these leaps. Maybe the first leap was during the financial recession that APC was born out of. And then this certainly is another one of those leaps. The global pandemic, science, engineering, innovation has to play a role in that. I think everyone realised that. And on that flight, myself and Brian, we chose the route of not being cautious or what's going to happen, let's wait to see how the dust settles. We chose to really accelerate our investment into the business and to back the team. Back the team to do more innovation, more disruption. Back the team to innovate around vaccines, how they're researched, how they're manufactured. And that's what we did. We essentially delivered our largest investment, 25 million euros, creation of 120 jobs, to essentially tool up and accelerate the development of these therapeutics and vaccines. So it was on that flight that we I think, took the biggest decision in the last 10 years of the business. We made the biggest investment. We decided to really try assess with government how we could do that. And as a result of that, we created another company called VLE Therapeutics that is essentially taking digital and disruptive engineering to figure out how to manufacture these life-saving therapies and new vaccines. Yeah, so reflecting on the last couple of years of the global pandemic, so many people touched for so many negative reasons. And I guess as we look at the backdrop of APC, this kind of cultural determination to make things happen, we gave birth to VLE Therapeutics to explore and reimagine how these medicines could be made. And I remember as we did that, working with Enterprise Ireland really closely, and obviously then the Irish government. We are blessed that the Taoiseach came here twice. I think it might be the first time ever where the Taoiseach in his tenure has come twice to an Irish company. And he was coming to explore how APC and VLE could tool up to have an impact as an Irish company on the global pandemic. And what's, I think, terrific as a result of that work with Enterprise Ireland and the Irish government, that we can all stand over this with pride. We've built out this medicine accelerator ecosystem, now accelerating the development of some really unique vaccines, and now actually manufacturing them. I can't actually believe what the team has achieved in the last 12 months. From a whisper in the wind, a few words on a flight, to building out this manufacturing infrastructure, building out the team. It's just incredible to be part of. This kind of term acceleration just seems to be in us. So APC is disrupting on the research side, And VLE is reimagining how these new life-saving therapies and vaccines can be manufactured. Patients need innovation, they need speed, they need improvements to the cost of these therapies. And through APC and VLE, the Medicine Accelerator, we're taking on those grand challenges. So here we sit in APC, our headquarters here in South Dublin on the foothills of the Dublin and Wicklow Mountains. And not many people will be aware perhaps of APC, but some of the most groundbreaking science and engineering within the pharmaceutical space is taken here. And perhaps that shouldn't have happened, but it has. It's remarkable actually to kind of walk the research labs and floor plate to kind of get a sense of that. That's only possible with the two things I'd say. We have the brightest and best minds, nationally and internationally. About 90% of the team are PhD qualified at a minimum. So over 150 scientists and engineers on this mission to disrupt and innovate. But I think that hand of those credentials is kind of really knocked out of the park when I start to reflect on the culture and the capability the team culturally have built. Such entrepreneurial spirit, I'd say courage on a day-to-day basis to take on these grand challenges. Some of the biggest challenges the world are facing, the team here are trying to conquer and defeat. And I think when you look at that, the culture with that academic and technical capability, geez, I think we have a real powerful platform to take this Irish company to a real global stage. So as part of that disruptive strategy for APC and VLE, we're on the mission now to recruit over 120 people over the next several months to really create an interesting research and manufacturing ecosystem. One of the most important aspects of that being in Ireland is the importance of STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths. We recruit people from all over the world, but obviously are heavily reliant on the local demographic here in Ireland. I'm a kind of an output of STEM related investment, had support from government through scholarship, through Science Foundation Ireland. And I think for people in Ireland in particular, there are opportunities to tool up and make a real global impact with science and engineering. And perhaps it's a gap within what's positioned to people who when they're growing up. I certainly never really realised the extent at which science and engineering can impact people's lives. And what's great is it's possible to do that from Ireland, and it's possible to do it with an Irish company too. When bringing in a new idea, new innovation or technology to the business, if you're disrupting, you're looking to grow, I guess on reflection, that doesn't necessarily come for free, and obviously it's not easy, not financially free. You're asking the team to really draw on their cultural spirit to make these things happen. But I think perhaps mistakes sometimes people make is they don't realise that a healthy piece of tension or a piece of anxiety can actually bring the best ideas to life. And that's definitely one of the things I reflect on growing APC and VLE. You can see as you fold in these different growth spurts, these different pieces of technology, it fuels opportunities for the team, but it's hard. So I'm definitely perhaps not the person to kind of sit here and sort of say, look, what we task the team to do here is simple. It's the hardest science in the world. But when I look at the technical capability of the team and the cultural prowess and strength and determination, these things, I guess, with that tension are just part of our day-to-day life. And we spend our day-to-day life perhaps creating and not looking to dilute or just fade away. We have to keep that creativity flowing within the company. As I'm getting older, one of the things that I'm really reflecting on is the value of the things I've banked, I'd say, through my journey as a kid, through my education and through into APC. And one of the most important parts of that journey for me was how I feel I was reared. I was brought up in an environment, my dad had his own business, my mom worked with my dad in that business. I saw the day-to-day grit, the battles I used to work summers with my dad, picking up the phone, doing sales. The lasting memory I have from that childhood, I guess, were the environment I was brought up in and the values that were instilled in me. I feel that my grit or my passion for what we do, it comes from that. And geez, I'm really appreciative, obviously, to my family and friends for kind of helping shape the character that I am. Lots of pros, lots of cons, but I think that those stories were fundamental to my journey into chemical engineering and then into APC. Yeah, my journey is really fortuitous that my eldest brother Paul was Professor Brian Glennon, my now co-founder of APC's first PhD student, so Brian's first exploration into the academic research space. And little did I know, like several years later, when I was walking the corridors of the chemical engineering department, that I remember knocking on Brian's door in my third year of chemical engineering and saying, Brian, I'm interested in pursuing a PhD in chemical engineering. And it certainly speaks volumes of Brian, very humble man, and so he's really hungry to give people opportunities. And I just remember in that early exchange, Brian's smile and interest in me going for it. And Brian backed me in that those early days to take on the PhD. And it's probably, I guess, that's really an important fabric to our relationship. And now he really backs me in my role as CEO, and I really back him as the CTO of the business. And it's a kind of a really interesting relationship. One of the most important relationships in my life, for sure. My day-to-day life here in APC and VLE is it's magic. Got some of the best, if not the best, research labs and technological capability out of any company in the world here. And I guess I get to roam these laboratories, engage with the team, talk about some of the grand scientific challenges they're taking on. What an honor. And at the end of the day, I'm a bit of a geek, and I get to kind of explore all this science and engineering on a day-to-day basis. Never realised that actually that could be a job, and could be a job that I could do from Ireland. But real special place that we've created here in APC, and really looking forward as we scale that out to make it a world-class environment.